Good afternoon. Welcome to another segment of the Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Today is Monday, June the 16th, 2014. I want to talk today about the Spurs beatdown of the Heat and why this was a good thing for the NBA. Now, anytime you get finals that are routes, that's generally not good regardless of the sport. It's generally not good because it can kill ratings and things like that because people don't usually like seeing blowouts. However, here's why this one was the exception. And occasionally you're going to get those what we call the exception to the rules. Because the Spurs the Heat is a team that everybody loves to hate because of the whole way they got together, the whole dynamics about it. This series was a series that was not pitted the Spurs versus the Heat. This series was pitted a difference of two philosophies. One philosophy is you load your team up with superstars and then get some couple role players around them. And then another philosophy is you have one superstar on two at the most, and then a whole lot of role players. Or in other words, you have a deep bench. Now, see, the problem is this. In today's NBA, because of what the Heat did in 2010 with that whole thing with LeBron and the decision and everything, they pissed off a lot of owners with that move. So the following year, in 2011, there was a lockout. And basically, the owners said that there will not be any more games played until the whole salary structure was and the whole cap and everything with the luxury tax was done. So this way, you cannot form a true big three the way Miami did it in 2010. Now, we got to take a couple of things into account here, okay? The Spurs, big three. And see, everybody wants to say, oh, but the Spurs got their own big three, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker. But Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker are not making the big money. That's the funny thing about this. Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker are the elder statesmen of the team. Okay? Now, they can make more money elsewhere, but they chose to stay in San Antonio and play for a lot less money. I mean, I believe Parker's making like $12 million, Duncan's making like 10. So between Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker, they're making about $30 million. They're only eating up $30 million of the cap. Do you realize that San Antonio's payroll, folks, was about $68 to $69 million? What do you think the Heat's payroll was this year? Over $80 million. Now, why is this important? If you're Mickey Aniston, who is the owner of the Miami Heat, you're paying $20 to $25 million more, easy, in salaries. And I'm just saying salary. I'm not even including the luxury tax. I'm just saying in salary, you're paying $20 to $25 million more to get run off the court by the Spurs? And then on top of that, you got to take into account the luxury tax, the repeater tax, and all his other taxes. So he really was paying over $35 million more than what the Spurs were paying. I want you folks to think about that. $35 million to basically get run off the court the way they did. If I'm Mickey Aniston or I'm any of these other owners, I'm not paying for this. Now, it's nice that you had that 4-year run where you got to 4 NBA finals. That's all nice, well, and good. But you want to build a team like the Spurs. See, a team like the Spurs, they can be relevant for 17 years, which is what they have been. The Heat has only been relevant for the 4. And I'm talking about the Heat with the big three with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Been relevant for 4, and now they're forced to break it up. Okay? Now there's this talk of bringing in Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony could not have stopped what took place in this year's finals, folks. he would not have stopped it. They just probably wouldn't have gotten beaten as bad, but trust me, the Heat was going to still get beaten. And then now it's being reported by Brian Windhorst, who is proclaimed to know LeBron better than even LeBron's own mother, okay? And LeBron was the one who said that, so don't beat me up over it, okay? But LeBron was upset because Mickey Aniston and the organization amnestied or cut Mike Miller because they didn't want to pay that $6 million salary, because they didn't want to go and pay that luxury tax, that $15 million luxury tax. And then they made some other moves, like they got rid of Joel Anthony, who could have at least helped with some of the rebounding and defending. They got rid of that for a future number one, and gave up a future number one first round pick. Oh boy, Joel Anthony, a future first round pick for Tony Douglas. I mean, are you serious? To me, these are bad moves. But they had to do it so they could get underneath that luxury tax. They're not trying to pay that tax, which is bringing me now to my point. This is why the Spurs philosophy of building a complete team around your stars is going to ultimately win out over the team that is trying to build their team based off a couple or two or three superstars in their prime. See, you got to realize, folks, this is a new day and age in the NBA now. This is a new day and age in the NBA now. The NBA is going to be about managing dollars and cents. And LeBron and the owner, they're going to come to a head on this. Because LeBron wants them to spend money. The owner's trying to cut back money. Okay? This is going to be an interesting battle here. Who wins out? And then not only must you spend money, you got to get the right pieces. Okay? If LeBron is as smart as I think he is, because he's a very bright individual, he would realize that, you know what? Adding another superstar would only further inhibit our ability to add a real bench. You need a bench, folks. San Antonio didn't beat you with their starting five, particularly Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker. They beat you with guys like Danny Green, Boris Diaw, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi's now a starter, but Kawhi Leonard, okay? Patty Mills killed them. They had no answer for Patty Mills. None whatsoever. I mean, that's deep. Tiago Splitter, Matt Barner, Marco Bellinelli. I mean, they can go legitimately 10 deep without even seeing any form of a drop-off. That is rare in today's NBA. But the reason they can go 10 deep is because their main stars is not eating up the salary cap. So now there's talk of, well, Bosh taking less, Wade taking less, LeBron taking less to bring in Carmelo. Carmelo would have to play for $15 million a season. Let me ask you folks this. Do you really think Carmelo's going to play for $15 million a season? I don't care how much he wants to ring. He's not playing for $15 million a season. Even though, quite frankly, he should, but he's not. And even if somehow you can do that, you're asking Chris Bosh to go from $20 million to making $15 to $14 million a season. Then you're going to ask Dwayne Wade to do the same. Good luck trying to sell that. Good luck. And that's going to be an interesting sell. And to me, okay, even if you get Carmelo, let's say you somehow pull this off and you got Carmelo to take $15 million per season for the next 4 years, which is roughly about $50 million or something to that effect. 15 is 30. No, that's actually 60. I'm sorry, not 50. 60 million. Oh, for 4 years, sorry. 60 million for 4 years. So even if you somehow pull that off, Where's your bench going to be again? Again, please explain to me what kind of bench you're going to have. Who's going to come off the bench? Who's going to be your point guard? Who's going to be your point guard? Who's going to be your backup point guard? Who's going to be your shooting guard and backup shooting guard? Who? Who's going to be your center? You need a center, folks. You need somebody who can grab some rebounds. Carmelo is a scorer. Carmelo this year got about 8 rebounds per season, which is his high, or roughly around his high. Something like that, 8 to 9 rebounds. Okay, that's nice, but you need more than that. Who's going to guard both Duncan and Diop? Who's going to guard them? You see, Chris Bosh can't. And yet you're paying this man $20 million. And he's basically a jump shooting big man at $20 million. You got to be joking. You have got to trim down this payroll. And there's only one way that I see you can do it where you can become championship contender, folks. And that is you got to let Bosh and Wade walk. Wade got 2 more years on his deal. If he opts in, he's got 2 more years on his deal for $40 million. Did you see Wade in these finals? The Heat is stuck if Wade opts in. The Heat is stuck. But even if, let's say they opted out, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go now? See, had you moved Chris Bosh last year after the finals, that should have told you to break that group up then. Had you done that then, you could have had a better team around this team. You could have better players around this team. You could have had a bench. Here's a move that would have helped Miami greatly. You take Chris Bosh and you move him to Brooklyn for, say, either Lopez and Livingston or Darren Williams, because you need either a center or a point guard. So Darren Williams and Andre Blatch. Any one of those would have worked. Any one of those would have worked. That would have been an excellent combination that could have at the very least, helped Miami. Because you pay Bosh too much money for what he's giving you. He's not a rebounder. He's not a shot blocker. I mean, he blocks 1 or 2 shots here and there, but he's not a shot blocker. He is no, oh my God, the guy from OKC, okay? Serge Ibaka. He's no Serge Ibaka. Ibaka is a feared shot blocker. He's a rebounder. Then they got that young boy, that white boy named Adams. He's going to be good, folks. If used properly, Adams is going to be good. Then they also got Jones. They got size. It's just got to now be used correctly. That coach got to realize, go with your bench. You got a bench. Utilize it. The Spurs showed you how to build a championship caliber team. If these teams are smart, go the Spurs route. The Spurs have done it for 17 years. They have been one of the top 5 teams in the league for the last 17 years, folks. Every year when there's the talk of who can win an NBA championship, the Spurs have to always be in that conversation. They've been in that conversation for the last 15 to 17 years. That's a great longevity to have. Now, Vegas comes out, and they basically have the Heat as the odds-on favorite to win next year. Vegas quite frankly, don't understand the game of basketball, and quite frankly, haven't been watching these finals. Because if they have done either or, they would know that the Heat should not be the favorites to win next year. But that's okay. Let Vegas do that. Because now if I'm San Antonio, if I'm Greg Popovich, this is more motivation to use. You don't even get the respect you deserve from Vegas. But that's okay. Because see, now you got something else to drive for. And that's back to back because, quite frankly, you should have won last year. But I think the worst thing that happened for the Heat last year was that they won. It would have been better had they lost. Because then Riley would have went with his first gut instinct, which was to break up the big three. See, now you're really at the mercy of those three players, Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. You're at their mercy because technically you can't do anything until you find out what they're going to do. If they opt in, you're screwed. You have no bench. You're going to be forced to keep guys for mid-level exceptions. And I don't know if Mickey Anderson going to want to keep him. He's going to want to do things to get underneath that cap. You can already see he's already tried that. So I'm going to be honest, I think LeBron is going to have to really look at this. Now, there's some nice young teams out there. I will tell you a couple of teams that with LeBron, they can go a long way. Washington is one. Cleveland, if he goes back home to Cleveland, is another. Okay? Because why? You're playing with more truer point guards. LeBron needs to play with a true point guard, not a shoot-first point guard. He needs to play with a pass-first point guard. That's the kind of player that LeBron needs to. Let's look at San Antonio's big three. Again, Ginobili, a shooter. He's a shooter, and he plays the shooting guard position. But he can also play the point guard, which means he can pass the ball. Everybody on the Spurs can pass the ball. You can't play for the Spurs if you can't pass the ball. Okay? And he can dribble. So you can't pressure Ginobili. Think you can just pressure Ginobili. But Ginobili's main job is to shoot the ball. Parker is the point guard. And Duncan is the scorer. See, that's a natural fit. Wade and LeBron are basically scorers. High-volume scorers. They're not great shooters. They don't shoot great percentages, they're not a shooter like a Reggie Miller type. They're not great shooters. They're great scorers. And Chris Bosh, he's an okay scorer. But that's all you're going to get from Chris. Don't look for rebounding, because that's not really what he does. He'll grab 1 or 2 rebounds here and there, the occasional rebound. But really, he's not a rebounder. And he's not a shot blocker. So San Antonio can get to the rim at will without really worrying too much about the shot block. They couldn't do that against OKC when Serge Ibaka was manning the paint. They had to be a little careful how they went in there. They didn't have to do that with Miami. These little things make a big difference. So if you want to build if you want to have a model as to how to build a team, look at the way the Spurs did it. I don't care what sport we're talking about, folks. The Spurs showed you how to build a team. Period. They showed you how to build a team. If you notice, the NFL is about promoting team. The NBA is about promoting superstars. And the NBA needs to stop doing that. You need to promote teams. San Antonio is a team you need to promote. Give more love to. San Antonio, folks, showed you how the way the game of basketball is meant to be played. They showed you that. So if you understand, so then now, that's why I say if I'm Chicago or Houston, and I got a week in my bench to bring in Carmelo, I would pass, personally speaking. I would pass. Because at the end of the day, a weakened bench isn't going to help you. A weakened bench isn't going to help you. I'm sorry, it's just what we call the reality. I don't need to have 2 and 3 superstars. I'd rather have 1 superstar and a whole bunch of very, 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 very good players than to have 2 superstars with okay players. With no bench, how does that help you? I want to thank you for watching another segment of the Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Have a good evening.